just remember who's allowed to put their reviews on there. And the answer is anyone.
Right.
His little feet.
Yeah.
His regular human little feet in regular human little
His
shoes.
little shoes.
I was like, wait, what? Jebel. What a name.
Yeah, that guy sucks. What's up, everyone, and welcome to Last Week in Star Wars. I'm Alex.
I'm Molly.
And we're just going to jump straight into Andor talk because it's over and we're all sad about it.
We are all sad about it.
I wanted to bring up something similar that we talked about last week, but Andor has become the first show on IMDb to have 5 episodes in a row rated at 9.5 or higher.
That's crazy to think about, actually.
Yeah.
So just in a row, 5
Yes,
episodes in a row. Interesting. Okay.
So yeah, the Gorman Massacre, Who Are You, up until the finale, are all rated at least a 9.5, at least while we're recording this on a Thursday.
Yeah, I mean, that's great for any show, but for a Star Wars show, that's pretty impressive.
I mean, yeah, it's obvious. Yeah, great for any show. First show to do it. I don't know if that's gonna stand forever. I mean,
yeah,
it's IMDb. Like, it's not that huge of a deal or anything. I always think it's funny when people will point to like Rotten Tomatoes or IMDb to say like, look, this is proof of something, when it's like, there's like review bombing on both sides.
Yeah. Like you said, early on, the reviews were even higher, right? They were like 9.8, 9.9, because so many people are positively review bombing Andor. Which,
I mean, I think that there's always people who are like, that was a 10 out of 10, I'm going to go vote that. But there are some things that will get votes before the episode's even out.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, pointing to Rotten Tomatoes or IMDb, I'm always like, okay.
Take it with a grain of salt. You know, just remember who's allowed to put their reviews on there. And the answer is anyone.
Right. But it's still like fun just to see. I mean, we've been experiencing it for the past 4 weeks. Just people are loving on Andor. It's been great to see that reaction.
It's especially great after everything that happened with the Acolyte. As someone who enjoyed the Acolyte, having to slug through just like all the negative stuff about Acolyte, this feels like like fresh air. It's nice to be in the Star Wars space right now when so many people are agreeing that the show's great.
Yeah, and even like people outside of the Star Wars space are coming in to watch this. But yeah, that has led to the discussion of like, you know, will this be the best that Star Wars ever is? What are your thoughts on that?
I don't really like the idea of having to compare Andor to all the other Star Wars shows and movies and stuff, just because there's such different stories and different vibes that I don't want to say that this is going to be the best all-around Star Wars we'll ever get. When I look at the writing in Andor, I think maybe, but I hope to be proven wrong.
I mean, here's the thing. When people start to make these big blanket statements like that, that's another thing that kind of makes me roll my eyes a little bit. Like, Andor is my favorite Star Wars series. I can say that very confidently. But it's not my favorite Star Wars thing. I just don't think A New Hope is ever going to be unseated for me. And that's just, everyone's going to have their own opinion on what is the best Star Wars thing ever. Yeah, I agree. Just the claim right away that like, well, Star Wars is never going to top this. I don't know. I just would like to be more optimistic than that.
Right.
I do think that it's gonna maybe take a while for something this special to come on for a long time. And still, like, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order just like shot me in the heart with how much I loved it. And I still like Survivor a whole lot too. It's one of those things where, yeah, I take in every Star Wars thing I can. I don't love them all to death to the level of A New Hope or Fallen Order or Andor. But something's going to come along again. There are projects out there that we can't even fathom. And something's going to show up and we're going to be like, holy crap, this is amazing. It's probably going to be very different from Andor.
Yeah.
I think back to when The Mandalorian was coming out and people were saying like, this is incredible. Give Favreau and Filoni everything. And it's like, if that happened, we probably wouldn't have gotten Andor.
Right.
It's like, I'm just always big on Star Wars thrives on variety. and I am going to hold Andor close in my heart for a long time, but something is going to come along that I probably love just as much. It just might take a while.
Yeah. And there's going to be people out there that feel the way you feel about A New Hope, about Andor.
Exactly.
And that's okay, but it's when they start to use their own opinion to lord it over everyone else and be like, my opinion is that Andor is the best, and your opinion is wrong. That's when it starts to get messy. That's what we don't want to see. You know, as long as we can all be cool, and which
the internet has proven that it can be.
Which we all know cannot happen. But if someone says, I think this is the best Star Wars is ever going to get about Andor, that's fine. But it's when they start arguing with other people who think different, you know, that just gets messy.
Right. It's something that just every Star Wars fan has their own personal relationship with Star Wars and what they love about it. I think there's an argument to be made that there are things in The Mandalorian that work better than Andor, or that they do better in The Mandalorian. I mean, just the whole pulpy side of things, or, you know, Andor is not a very funny show, which is fine. Like, I think it works incredibly well for this style of show, and I'm glad that they didn't like lean into comedy until K2 came along. There are aspects of Andor that I love more than Mandalorian, and there are things in The Mandalorian that I'm like, well, the pulpy, goofy, fun side of things is over here, and yeah, I like that.
There's a lot of, I think, people out there who are big fans of prestige television, that really intense storytelling and like very dark and gritty. I hate saying those words, but dark and gritty, and like it's those people who are kind of dipping their toes into Star Wars who can be like, oh, this Andor show is amazing and it's way better than anything else Star Wars has put out. But it just depends on what level of Star Wars fan you are, like how many Star Wars things you kind of like expose yourself to.
I do think there's an element of that, of people who maybe have grown out of what a lot of Star Wars is, and that's perfectly fine. Like, if you want very mature Star Wars all the time and then Andor comes along and you're like, oh my god, like I am right now 38 and I feel like this was made for me. I do think Andor was made for people who like grew up with Star Wars and want something that is for their age group. But I also like the goofy things, and like animated Star Wars isn't on this level, but it's still handling very mature topics. It's just not handling it in like a more overt adult way.
Yeah, I really do think shows like Rebels, but I think most of the time I always go to Bad Batch, a great place where both exist. These are very like serious stories, but almost every episode has some really funny, goofy stuff happening. It's intense, the stakes are high, but it's an animated show and there's silly stuff in it. That kind of show has good examples of all different kinds of elements of Star Wars storytelling.
Yeah, I really liked what Joseph Scrimshaw said about Star Wars Rebels, where, yeah, in some episodes they're stealing fruit and it's goofy and whatever, especially in the early seasons, but if you dig into the characters, it's like Zeb is he thinks the last survivor of the genocide of his whole planet. Kanan, obviously a surviving Padawan from the Jedi genocide. Ezra is an orphan. Sabine made a weapon that was turned on her own people. Like, they're all dealing with some very heavy ideas, but it's an animated show and it's targeted for a younger audience. It's just the way they communicate those ideas is different.
Yeah. It reminds me of like video games and like people who play video games. You want a lot of high action, high intensity, like big fight scenes. You want to be able to really show off your lightsaber skills and have cool action sequences in video games. But you want to pet the dog.
Sure. you do.
You got to pet the dog.
Uh-huh.
So like there's different facets to these stories, and we can learn to appreciate all of it.
Yeah. I feel very happy about all the praise Andor is getting. I am on board with all of it, and I agree with all of it. I'm like, yeah, this is some of my favorite Star Wars of all time. I can't believe we're so lucky to be around while it's coming out. But yeah, I just don't want it to turn into, and we're seeing it happen. I don't want it to be one of those things where it's like, now I'm going to use Andor as a mallet to beat down every other Star Wars story.
Right.
It's like, The Mandalorian made me cry too. I mean, it also affected me pretty heavily. So
Yeah. We're not standing outside of the theater with a coat full of Star Wars books and comics being like, hey, come here. Look what I got.
I mean, I could do that.
We could do that. And sometimes I feel like we might sound like we're doing that. But we're not trying to pressure anyone.
Yeah. But it is like an element of, hey, did you like Andor? Dip your toes into the Bad Batch.
Yeah.
It's still got some very deep stuff. It's just presented differently.
Yeah. But on the flip side, there are Star Wars fans who like will only watch Star Wars things that I would say, if you liked Andor, try Battlestar or try For All Mankind or The Expanse. Like, broaden your horizons a little bit there if you liked the vibe of Andor.
I do. Yeah, I think there's an element of that too, is that people are like, oh, like, I'm never going to get a show like this again. And it's like, well, you can watch things that aren't Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Like, The Expanse is very much like Andor. We love Battlestar Galactica. You can also watch things that aren't sci-fi.
Yeah.
People are like, Tony Gilroy, don't leave me. It's like, go watch Michael Clayton.
Yeah.
Go watch his other work. He's not leaving forever and disappear. He's not becoming one with the Force. He's going to go do other things. So watch Tony Gilroy's other stuff.
Mm.
All that said, still just very happy to see such a positive response to Andor. You know, I've already put a review out about the final arc. We did our live stream on Thursday. If anyone were interested, we can talk about our overall thoughts about the final arc in the series real quick.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I really, really loved it. The overall story was like almost perfectly done, which is hard to do with so many characters and so many like interwoven storylines.
And shoving 4 years into 12 episodes.
Yeah. And we've said it a bunch. I would have loved to see what it could have been with a few more episodes or an extra season, but I'm still very impressed. Like, I still give it like a 9.5 out of 10.
I was, so surprised at how well they wove. Like, we knew Gorman was coming, but they were able to weave that into the story of the Death Star and its discovery and everything. And I was like, that was really smart.
Yeah.
to give kind of that through line of, the final arc is about finally discovering the Death Star and what it is, but we had 3 arcs leading up to that. It was still, I liked that through line.
And you put out a video about your updated thoughts on Rogue One.
Mm-hmm.
We also have a free, to anyone who wants to watch it, a free watch along with us to watch Rogue One. So you can kind of hear our thoughts as we kind of process the movie for the first time after seeing all of Andor. So that was fun to record.
Yeah, we put that on Patreon, but it is totally free for any of our supporters at all. Not paid supporters, anyone who wants to watch it. Going back and watching Rogue One made me feel a lot of things I was surprised about, especially around Chirrut. But the mysticism that they brought into Andor, that was in the Gorman arc. To bring back the Force Healer and that like last shot of him walking and he like gives her a little nod. I was like, oh God.
It reminds you like what Star Wars is about and how like it's so cool that they didn't really put any Force stuff at all in Andor until this moment. And it perfectly sets up Chirrut starting to bring in all this Force talk in Rogue One. And it reminds you just like, the Force is everywhere. The Force is everything. Like, connecting this back into a Star Wars movie and the greater Star Wars universe, you gotta involve the Force. Yeah,
it makes me think of Luke talking to Yoda and Luke telling him he's not afraid and he's like, you will be. Like, the idea that Cassian has a responsibility, even if he doesn't know what it is, and he has a destiny, partially comforting, knowing that like, hey, we're all alive at the time that we're supposed to be alive, and there are things that we're meant to do. It's very Lord of the Rings, Gandalf and all that, but it's also very sad that Cassian's thing is to go and sacrifice his life, and not only him, but Chirrut and Bodhi and Baze and Jin. Like, they all have their own rebellions, and it's all converging.
Yeah. I will say, like, watching Rogue One, I was kind of like, oh my god, this happened so fast. Like, we just lost 2 seasons of Cassian's story, and then, like, I know what happens at the end of Rogue One, but I was still kind of like, wait.
So slow it down.
Wait. Which is kind of like why I desperately crave the stuff that we could have gotten, like, between the 3rd and 4th arc.
Uh-huh.
But there's room for that in the future. Maybe not with Tony Gilroy, but, like, books, comics.
We'll talk about that
other stories
when we get to questions.
Okay.
Today's episode is brought to you by Vessi. They make comfortable, waterproof shoes built for everyday ease. Their weekend sneakers are lightweight and waterproof and minimally designed to go with any outfit. We walk our dog Hilo every day for at least 1.5 miles, and these shoes are easy to slip in and out of, and they've been comfortable every step of the way. Obviously, we hope to walk when the weather is nice, but the very first time I wore them out with friends, it started pouring down rain. I had to run to the car, and the shoes held up great, and I had good traction, so I didn't slip and fall, and they dried fast. I honestly wish I had these for Japan and Star Wars Celebration. With all the walking we did in Kyoto and Tokyo and at the convention, it would have been great to have a new pair of shoes that were comfortable, lightweight, and easy to fit into a suitcase. The Vessi Weekend Sneaker is a versatile shoe that doesn't sacrifice style or comfort. Make every day a little easier. Visit Vessi.com/Star Wars now for 15% off your first pair at checkout and start exploring with confidence. Well, we already kind of started dipping into last week in canon, but I wanted to focus on the things that weren't Andor that came out. So Pirate's Fortune came out on the day that we're recording this, so I haven't had a chance to play that yet, but that is the Hondo Ohnaka Star Wars Outlaws DLC. A Valiant Vow came out on May 6th, but I just finished it. I'll have a full review about it out next week, but I really liked it. I don't know, should we go into spoilers for that or talk about plot? It's been out for about a week, I guess.
If you want to, I'll put a time code up if you want to skip and you don't want to be spoiled. But this is a middle grade book.
I won't do spoilers. I'll just say it's the final middle grade book for the High Republic. I was surprised. I was not expecting, like, the emotional gut punch that it gave me at the end.
It took a while for it to, like, really build to that emotional part.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's a middle grade book, and like I said, I'm 38, and it's not targeted at me. Even the young adult books, I feel like, are more just accessible to someone my age. So the middle grade books have always kind of been like, yeah, they're fun, fast reads, and this one was the same way. I was flying through it, but, like, the very end of it, I was like, oh, right, this whole High Republic initiative is ending. And, like, the story that it wrapped up for the middle grade novels felt very satisfying and was making me emotional. And I was like, what's happening? Also, we had just watched Rogue One and Andor, and so it was already, like, on the verge.
I'm really happy that Justina Ireland got to give that to the High Republic then. Like, that was between this and Wayseeker, I think that those were her last Star Wars books that she had said that she planned on doing.
Right.
So it's great that she gets to leave kind of with a bang.
Right. And she put 2 books out on the same day.
Yeah.
They both came out on May 6th, and, like, that seems rare for any author to have 2 books come out on the same day, but she had 2 Star Wars books come out on the same day. The only other news story that came out this past week was Jedi Knights issue 3. I will be going into spoilers for this one if you want to skip to the next segment. This was a weird issue. The first 2 issues of Jedi Knights I thought were absolute bangers. Really cool setup to a story. This one felt like a complete detour, at least so far. It was about Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, and they go to rescue Bail Organa, who's, like, crash landed on some uncharted planet. And I don't think we were given a reason why. And there are these giant monsters that their names were inspired by kaiju. I can't remember what they were, like Kaijime or something. So these giant monsters are attacking Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon and the ship, and Qui-Gon has to use the Force to help the ship, like, take off. Which, that was a really cool scene.
Force jumpstart, if you will.
I like that. Basically. I mean, it was kind of like getting out and pushing a car to help it get going.
Yeah.
It was kind of like that. But he was inside with the Force. And that was it. It was like really short as far as there wasn't a lot of dialogue. It was mostly all art, which did look great. But I was just like, this has like nothing to do with Atha Prime or anything else going on.
Also, I guess to me it feels like, did they have to send Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan to do that?
Don't know why they specifically were chosen. Maybe this is like the first time Obi-Wan met Bail Organa. Yeah, I just felt like it was a very side story issue when like they had just introduced Atha Prime, and I'm like, yeah, I'm excited for more of that.
Oh, yeah.
So
good to see Bail.
Yeah. And he did look like notably younger.
He's been on my mind a lot.
Sure.
That line in the Andor finale about like wanting to go down fighting, I was just kind of like, oh no.
Sometimes it's easy to forget that like he's also days from death. Like Alderaan is just around the corner. So with so much going on in Andor, it's like trying to remember everything else going on. But yeah, Bail is not much longer for this world, galaxy. Moving on to our questions for the week. We took some from our Patreon, and we already did mention the watch along that you can go watch. Anyone can watch that for free right now. Also wanted to give a shout out to Robert Daneka, who joined our Jedi Council this past week. So thank you so much, Robert. That's very generous. But our first question comes from Damien Vonderhaar, who asks if we could get books or comics to flesh out the year-long gaps in Andor.
Yes, and I hope we do.
I think that we obviously potentially could. I think they'll probably wait until the Reign of the Empire trilogy is done. Mm-hmm. We got the first one of those earlier this year, The Mask of Fear, which was awesome. And we're going to get 2 more. And I do think that now that Andor is done, they're going to have more free reign to pull Luthen into this story. Mon and Bail are already central characters to the first book, and Saw. So if we keep up with them, we might be able to get some of those scenes that we have been wanting. Mm-hmm. Like, it seems like no one knows who Luthen is, and then we get to the 4th arc, and the whole rebellion is rolling their eyes at Luthen.
Yeah. So
yeah, I want to know how Bail got roped into his side of things, their interactions, what were they like?
So when does Mask of Fear end, and do we know the timeline of this trilogy?
So Mask of Fear ends like right after Revenge of the Sith. It starts and ends very shortly after episode 3. I believe
it's all before Andor.
Oh yeah, well before Andor. And I believe the whole trilogy is supposed to span the whole reign of the Empire. And so it
will go into Andor.
I think so.
Okay, so that, definitely makes me think that they'll be able to fill in some of those gaps.
It's going to be similar to this season of Andor, where we're going to have like these 3 significant stories with huge gaps. Mm-hmm. But they could have their significant stories take place in between arcs of Andor or something like that.
And then you can like read the books in tandem with an Andor rewatch if you wanted to.
I mean, yeah, especially the final book I could see being very like, let's focus on Bail and Mon maybe after she left the Senate, and we could get all of that, more buildup of Yavin. Mm-hmm. We could get that in the second book as well, but I definitely think that we're going to get some stuff fleshed out there. And then if there are still gaps, yeah, sure, we can always go back and get a Cassian comic or a Luthen comic or something. I don't know.
Yeah, Clea comic. I'm so happy with Clea's last arc and where she ends up. My headcanon is that like Clea and Vel, maybe there's
honestly,
something there.
Just thinking about them in the first arc of season 2 versus their last scene, where they're like kind of just judging each other and being catty at the wedding. And then we cut to the end where Vel is like, oh gosh, let me get a coat on you, like being very nice to Clea. I think that their relationship is deepened.
Yeah.
Graham Gaskill asks, if we think Tony Gilroy is right, will we ever see another series like Andor? And I want to read Tony's full quote from Empire. This is when he said it. He said, not because we're so great, but because no one's ever going to start a show on this scale again and shoot it practically and have the resources and the protection to do something like this. We were protected all the way down the line. Kathy Kennedy protected us, Lucasfilm protected us, Bob Iger protected us, the audience protected us, The Mandalorian protected us. We had all these people out there backing our play.
Interesting.
And I do right now kind of think, and not just in Star Wars, I think that the whole like television streaming industry right now is in such a mess that,
Shambles even.
yeah, like everything seems very up in the air.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like a miracle that we got 2 seasons of Andor at all.
I do think he's right for the time being.
Yeah.
I think there's always a chance down the line, especially if it's going to be another Star Wars show that like ties into a movie like this. There's always going to be chances to create amazing stories as a television show and like stick it into an empty slot somewhere in the Star Wars timeline. But yeah, because of the entertainment industry right now and the big focus shift from TV streaming back to movies and theaters, I don't think we'll get anything like that for a while.
Yeah, I mean, and I should point out that there are shows like Penguin was something we really, really liked, and I would consider it similar to Andor in its writing, but I assumed that its budget was less because it didn't have to deal with like all the production design that comes with Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah, you can just shoot in New York or wherever.
Right. If the Penguin goes to a grocery store, it's just a grocery store. When Cassian and Bix go into a shop, everything has to be written in Arabesh and look weird, and there has to be a puppet in the corner. Like, so Star Wars does have that additional hurdle.
That's why they keep going to these desert planets.
Right.
Nothing there.
There's nothing here.
Just a desert.
It's just sand everywhere. You're right. That's why they went to Tatooine in the first movie. It would be cheap. But yeah, that is funny. Yeah, I'm just very skeptical of the whole streaming model right now. I wanted to talk about this question because I think, man, if Andor didn't start shooting when it did, if it were delayed even a year, I'm like, I don't know if we would have gotten 2 seasons of this. Like, it was very expensive to make, didn't get the same kind of viewership as like The Mandalorian, but it was greenlit at that time where Disney Plus was like, do everything, do a Mighty Ducks reboot,
right.
Do whatever we can, just make stuff.
When Tony Gilroy says all that stuff about being protected, though, I think contracts had been signed.
Oh, yeah.
Things had been put into place in a way that, like, despite the way the industry is going kind of downhill, I think he was saying, like, we were protected so that we could finish big still.
Yeah. I'm curious to know if they had contracts signed for a second season before season 1 came out, or if they were still, if Disney Plus was still in that mode of like, we just need stuff, so keep greenlighting things. But I did really like him talking about how Kathleen Kennedy protected the show. He did a more recent interview talking about just everything he went to her with. She was like, yep, let's do it. But they were also allowed to go big because of the success of The Mandalorian. So like all of these things just fell into place so that this show could happen and it could be done the way that Tony Gilroy wanted it to be done. Yeah.
And I think, like you said, the success of the other shows had something to do with it. Overall, the audience reaction to the first season of Andor being mostly positive and like critics liking it, fans of all, sorts were liking it. I think they saw that and they were like, we have to finish this. Like, people like it, so keep going with it.
Yeah, I hope so. It's like, I know from a numbers standpoint, it wasn't doing as well. But yeah, critically, like, I think that there was a ton of word of mouth. This is not like a great source, but looking at our own viewership, I remember Andor season 1, it started really low, like when we were doing reviews and coverage. But as it got deeper and deeper into the season, it was like going up and up.
Yeah.
And then the same thing happened this season where it started higher than season 1. But like as we got deeper and deeper, our coverage was getting more and more views. And so to me, that suggests that there's just more and more interest generally in the show. So yeah, I think that a lot of word of mouth helped Andor. And hopefully it continues to just get eyeballs and get people interested.
Yeah. Also, like, they really stepped it up with the marketing for season 2.
They did. Like Tony and the whole team, they're all doing so many interviews, and they finally did those like post-show,
the declassified
yes,
episodes. So important, because it sucks, but like people need like a quick short little thing to convince them to like watch something, and even if it gives people spoilers, I think people will go and find those declassified episodes and be like, wow, this sounds really cool, and they'll go watch the show.
It's just great to have like a little way to wind down after an episode too. I mean, we loved watching like the ones that were done for Game of Thrones, or we watched the White Lotus ones, The Last of Us. Like every HBO show, Penguin did it.
Yeah,
they all have little like, hey, let's just talk about the making of this show. And both of us, but you especially, have been like really like, why doesn't Star Wars do this?
I've been like, you want me to do it? I'll do it. We'll do it.
Yeah, I'll go talk to all these people.
But you know who does it better? Tony Gilroy and all the actors.
Yeah. But yeah, having the writers and the actors talking about the scenes and showing the sets being built, it's like, yes, I'm glad that they finally did that.
Yeah, it's like a dessert or like an after dinner mint. Like you feel fully satisfied, and because like sometimes an episode will end abruptly and you'll be like, oh my gosh, I have so many questions. And even if they don't necessarily answer those questions that you have in the declassified episode, it leaves you feeling more satisfied, a little bit more comforted.
The after dinner mint is the perfect analogy.
Yeah.
Like, I love that. Just we just had a meal. I'm full, but I just need a little way to relax. Like, pop a little chocolate in.
Yeah.
GoCubes asks if we had any favorite cameos from Andor in a show that didn't have a whole lot. What were your favorite ones from, I guess, seasons 1 or 2, but I was more thinking 2.
Honestly, like the first one that came to my mind is Melshi.
Sure.
Just getting so much more of his story and seeing him with Cassian escaping Narkina leading into Rogue One. Like when I watched Rogue One, I guess for the finale episodes of Andor plus Rogue One, I was kind of like, I am so glad Melshi is there with Cassian. They've been in it since Narkina. Like, it just made me appreciate him so much more.
Yeah, it actually made me bummed out that in Rogue One, you see him get shot, but then he kind of like has his last breath off screen, and you're just like, oh, no. Melshi. That was even more heartbreaking. For the whole series, I might go with Yularen. Just back in season 1, I wasn't really expecting him, but he was fun to have back. In season 2, I'll say Erskine Samaj.
I was going to say that one too, yeah.
That was a fun one that made sense to include and pull him in from Star Wars Rebels. But yeah, it's like the choices are few and far between in Andor.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them, including Melshi, like Weems and like
I did love seeing Weems. Okay.
All the people that we recognized from Draven from Rogue One that you were kind of like, they really need to pull so-and-so into this. Like we were thinking Draven, Merrick,
I was
Radis.
sad that Merrick didn't make it in. And I know it was just scheduling. And I think he may have been doing Interview with a Vampire, which we watched. And he was great in that.
I'm ready for that.
I was like so happy to see. I was like, oh my God, it's Merrick. So seeing him in Interview with a Vampire was cool. I'm sad he didn't get just a little ship moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, Radis and Draven were great. I really liked how involved the Draven's role was. It was more than a cameo, I would say.
Yeah, and I was really excited to see Radis again.
Yeah.
The fact that they rebuilt that whole suit for Andor Season 2 is great because he could walk around. Obviously, they're going to use maybe a similar suit in Ahsoka Season 2 since Akbar's in it. So,
yeah, they're just going to spray paint that brown.
Yeah, I think so. But that was just really exciting to see scenes of him walking around, not in his silly little chair on his ship, which we talk about all the time, how like weird it is.
It always comes up. I'm just like, why would you make your cockpit, your command bridge, such a target? Like this big glass bubble, hanging down at the bottom of the ship. But I'm like, that's Radis. I think he would be cool if you just stuck him in an office chair and like gave him a blaster. He'd be like, I'm fine.
Something else, this is a tangent, but something else we noticed about Radis from Rogue One, his little feet.
Yeah.
His regular human little feet and regular human little shoes.
Little shoes.
I was like, wait, what?
You'd think that an aquatic alien would have like more, I don't know, fin-like feet.
And maybe
do.
Maybe
he does, and they just fold up into shoes.
Like, I need to rewatch some Clone Wars episodes with the Mon Calamari people, because maybe they do have different looking feet, and it was just like, well, it'll just be quick and no one's gonna pay attention.
And I mean,
I saw it. I paid attention.
Akbar also wears shoes in Return of the Jedi, so it's like there's precedent. But it is kind of funny when you just see sometimes it's like you pointed this out when we were watching Rogue One, but when you see Emperor Palpatine's shoes when he's like flipping upside down in Revenge of the Sith, you're just like, huh, just like normal little shoes, huh? Little loafers
his
for Emperor Palpatine.
Dr. Scholl's.
But what does an evil shoe look like? I don't know.
Boots. Always boots in Star Wars. When it's just a regular shoe, you're like, wait a second.
But can you imagine Palpatine like lacing up a boot? I don't know.
A little slip on. I don't know. Little slippies.
He's got like a little, that sexy leg when he's like putting the boot on, zipping it up.
Honestly, I would rather have just little slip-on shoes that fly off when he when he gets turned over.
Great. What a tangent. So yeah, I also wanted to talk about the two senators. It was nice to see Jebel and Pamlo.
Pamlo, yeah. Jebel. What a name.
Yeah, that guy sucks. But I'm glad that they had him in there to be an antagonist and to continue to be a Debbie Downer.
Right. Yeah.
And I want to go back to Weems, because that is one I was not expecting, and I liked him in Rogue One. It's a fun name, and so just to see that guy pop back up to have a couple lines, I was like, yes.
He has that great moment in Rogue One where he gets up and he runs across the base on Yavin to go tell Mon Mothma, and like it's just like such a cool, and he like seemed so committed to that part. I don't know, something about his performance.
Yeah, he stands out, and like it was someone I wasn't expecting to see, but I was like, yes, Weems deserves to be here. That's it for last week in Star Wars. Next week, we've got 3 comics: Fear of the Jedi issue 4, The High Republic Adventures issue 18, and Legacy of Vader 4. So we'll be covering all of that next week. Until then, please like this video, subscribe to the channel.
Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Blue Sky.
And consider checking out our Patreon page. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.